Amidst complaints of the increasing number of unemployable graduates, tertiary education in the country is battling with issues of dilapidated infrastructure and poor finance. My guest this week on the program is the Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Professor Suleiman Bogoro. He talks about funding tertiary education in Nigeria. Hello there. Thank you for joining me on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuke. According to the National Policy on Education, the provision of the much-needed manpower to accelerate the growth and development of the economy is the main relevance of tertiary education in Nigeria. However, tertiary education has suffered under the burden of inadequate funding and poor teaching facilities. Now, what is the Tertiary Education Trust Fund doing about this sort of challenge? Well, details will come in the interview segment, which will come much later, but up ahead. Amidst the increasing demand for infrastructural development in the nation's education sector, the heads of tertiary institutions across the country have appealed for more funding to improve the standard of education. Take a listen. From Auchi to Ekoma and to Benin, all in Edo State, the story of infrastructural deficiency remains the same in the various tertiary institutions. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund is carrying out interventions in some of the institutions, but there is more to be done.
Before the advent of trust fund or side-by-side intervention, we have some few buildings because of paucity of fund, lack of regular funding by federal government. These buildings have been abandoned. So for over 10 years, we have two cases like that. But we need intervention of trust fund to help us salvage the situation.
In neighboring Delta states, it's different strokes for different folks at the College of Education in Agbo. The institution has adequate facilities, but have been experiencing low patronage.
Right now, we are unable to meet our carrying capacity. The lecture halls are there, but the students are not forthcoming. We have the lecture halls, we have lecture theaters. However, that does not mean that we have been able to meet all our needs as lecture theaters are concerned.
However, beyond the inadequate infrastructure, human capacity building is key to improving the standard of education.
Give us 85% at the very beginning. The fact that you even give us 50% does not mean we give the companies 50%. We still give them based on valuations. So whether it is construction or renovation or procurement, just give us 85% and we will manage it so that you don't have to come back too many times.
Since its establishment, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund has provided funding for the infrastructure development in the nation's tertiary institutions. However, the lamentations remain, and the agency is hoping to get increased fund to adequately address the challenges in the institution. Well, joining me now is Professor Suleiman Bogoro, who will expatiate more about what is being done to the rot in the education sector as regards tertiary institutions. Watch. Professor Suleiman Bogoro, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Let's begin with this report that TED Fund plans to increase education tax, to make more funds available for tertiary institutions. Is that really true?
I think so. It is our desire that more funds are generated.
You said you think so.
Well, obviously, I know why I'm putting it that way. There are policy imperatives at times like this to reflect what is the position of government. The federal government has plans, and when the education sector briefed Mr. President recently about intentions to deepen interventions for both the two major intervention agencies in the education sector, TED Fund and UBEC, there was a case for raising the tax collection, the revenue from 2% to 4% for both. And why I say I put it that way is because, yes, the federal government and the ruling party has a position to widen a revenue base for the purpose of more effective and sustainable transformation, improvement of the education sector. And it's not possible to do that if the funds are not adequate. So thinking of raising it from 2 to 4% is logical. The APC as a ruling party holds that position, but it has to be unfolded properly. And for the Education Ministry, when it briefed Mr. President recently, I said that position was recommended to Mr. President strongly. And since he did not object, that is to say, the government is thinking along that line. And for us, operators in the sector, our job is to see that we are in line with the thinking of government. And you better imagine what has been achieved. And if there is more funds, in the case of UBEC, of course, is consolidated revenue. In the case of TED Fund, it is 2% assessable profit tax from registered companies in this country.
And would you say there's gross underfunding in the sector still?
Well, that has been the issue recurrently, and it has refused to go. It's understandable because if you are to provide infrastructure, you are to improve welfare and well-being overall of the actors, the players in the sector. And in that case, you're talking of mainly the teachers and the students. You got to invest money. You need more money. And if you reflect some decades ago, going back to early 90s, and since then it hardly abated until perhaps more recently that we are hoping that we should be seeing less of strike actions, but that persistently, whenever there was strike action by academic staff union of university polytechnics or colleges of education, it all had to do with what was described as gross underfunding and reflecting in non-existent or dilapidated infrastructure, if they existed at all. So it has been the case, and but look at it this way, that government, in its wisdom, embraced the proposal by ASU in 1992. When there was a strike between 1991-92, government signed an agreement to generate tax, 2% profit from tax-paying companies, and as tax, 2% tax for the purpose of education, which they call, is now called the education tax. And even the name Education Tax Fund originally, when the law, it came into law, the establishment of ETF, as it were, in 1993, eventually changed to Education Trust Fund in 1998 when the act was, the law was amended. And then until, of course, 2011, when government in its wisdom decided that, look, the funds were too thinly applied across the entire firmament of the education sector. We needed to concentrate on the echelon, the tertiary education, which was the original idea by the academic staff union of universities. And evidently, since 2011, over the last 4 years, there has been manifest impact. You would see it, it's visible. I mean, talking about besides the physical infrastructure, which of course is very evident. You go today in any of the public tertiary institutions, you don't have to be told that for the last 4 years, there has been significant, manifest, evident improvement in infrastructural development. Talking about what? Classrooms, offices for staff, laboratories, lecture rooms, even iconic buildings like Senate building and so on. Now it's possible, even for the corporate image of those universities. Besides what we identified as the content components, talking about academic staff training for PhD, MSc, academic staff both locally and overseas, including Ivy League universities across the world. These are the areas that are used to rank and rate universities globally.
It's commendable that TED Fund makes a lot of effort, but there's another fact here. An official of the fund was quoted to have said that the fund spent about 19 billion naira to train lecturers across the country in 2014. You will confirm that, but what exactly is this irony about? I mean, so much funds injected into the sector, yet we allegedly have half-baked students. Where is the disconnect right now?
So much has been spent, but you would agree that there was so much retrogression during the period of very low inflow of funds to the right areas.
Can you first confirm the 19 billion naira?
Of course, for 2014. I mean, there's no problem about that. In fact, we remember, I didn't give you figures, but if I'm to take you back in terms of being more specific, in terms of academic staff, we've trained in our public universities, polytechnics and colleges of education. Remember, we intervene only in the public. Those three categories, we've trained up to about 12,000. And nearly 7,000 have returned.
So where is the disconnect in spite of the funds injected into the system all these years?
Yes, talking about quality, you made a point, which I want to dwell on quickly, and very important too. That why is it that despite the investments, both in terms of infrastructure as well as academic staff training, library development and all those, I mean, journals, manuscript development, these are key academic areas of concern, that the quality of the students is deplorable. I tell you, it's an embarrassment to all of us, and you will agree and understand why government 4 years ago decided that, look, let us refocus on tertiary institutions instead of spreading the funds. After all, for basic education, there is UBEC. UBEC statutorily has the mandate as an intervention agency to address basic education needs, and that is primary school up to JS3. And it was important that we need to concentrate, and by concentrating, but let's not lose focus of something. That there has been so much neglect and like I call it retrogression, sometimes it's stagnation, but really it's been more of retrogression, because if we see the standard and quality of students and graduates now, compare them to what it was 10, 20, 15 years ago, you know that there is a difference, that the standards have really tumbled. And it disturbs some of us that have been teachers in the system. And we understand, and it's part of why the unions have been on strike so regularly, very sadly though, and we are happy to know that there has been a response in that respect, and you would see that any government watch itself. For instance now, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari has made it very clear that education is the area to start changing this country on a sustainable basis. In other words, human capital. And no nation plays with enhancing human capital and gets away with it. If you do so, you are recognizing the fact that you've lost capacity for competitiveness. You know, that is very, very important. So yes, why we still have low standards is because the neglect has been long. So if there is sustained intervention and there is increased intervention in those key areas, from infrastructure to the content components, academic staff quality, you know, that people have more lecturers have PhDs than it was. That's an improvement.
All right, when you look at the knowledge base of students who study abroad compared to those in Nigeria, arguably you can say it is better, but then there might be that gap of research. How is TETFund helping really to bridge this gap?
Precisely why we started intervening in aspects of research. And we realized that there are levels of research. There is research, basic research as we call it, the fundamentals around theoretical components of research or investigation, if I would put it that way. Then there is the applied, it's the next level, where you are going to address specific problems in society. Then the product development, those that you are likely to commercialize and solve the larger problem of economy and development of a nation. So in realization of that, we have two types of research grants. We have the institution-based research grant with a limit of just 2 million naira. Then we have the National Research Fund, NRF, with a limit of up to 50 million. So deliberately, we designated that the IBR, as we call it, institution-based research grant, which more lecturers get, is to address the theoretical component around basic research, mainly in the main, while the NRF gives you opportunity to go deep. If you are as somebody like me who say, look, you are not looking at just analyzing and profiling in the laboratory, as it were. In my field, we say proximate analysis, and you generate statistical data and attempt statistical analysis. We want to go deep into the cellular components, into the molecular components of the challenges of understanding nature. That is when the applied component comes into effect. And there you require more funds, because even the equipment you require to buy. For instance, in some of them, you want equipment, 5 to 10 million, 15 or even more. Sadly, now in this country, most of the R&D investigation or research investigation by companies is done by foreigners, as if Nigerians don't have capability. As I talk to you, Nigerians are in some of the best centers of excellence in the world. The challenge has been the environment. If we improve the environment, if there is a law that backs an R&D that is institutionalized in our tertiary institutions, as well as industry and others buy-in, in fact, part of it can be used to even fund science and technology, even from the basic level.
Well, just hold on with your thoughts. We'll come back on the environment when you mention challenges to do with research, and of course delve into the Buhari-led administration, and of course how they are going to help the sector. Please stay with us.
One of the things I still think TETFund needs to do is to add an overhead component to every building. So if you say you are given 100%, then you should do maybe 65% construction, 25% the equipment that will go into it. So that is what? That's 90%. And 10% overhead to be spent on that building over a 2 or 3 year period. Then you let go. Because every new building has an overhead inherent in it. And most times, overhead for universities can only come from student fees and from government funding. And it is usually in the breach.
Welcome back. We're still with Professor Suleiman Bogoro, the Executive Secretary of TETFund. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you.
Well, we left off with talking about research and the challenges associated with it. You mentioned environment. Can you expatiate more about what you meant?
I returned from Dayton, Ohio, a few days ago. We were there for 2 weeks. We invited university researchers at professorial level, mainly, as participants at a forum to review our driving R&D and attempt to institutional R&D and continue the advocacy for a national R&D foundation for Nigeria. And one of the key things identified is what I would call social negativism that has blighted our robust intentions, desires, and vision to compete with the rest of the world. And by social negativism, talking about environment, it's essentially around the environment. We're talking about social environment. We're talking about all those negative tendencies. And for Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari, I think if you look at it, it's been discussed in many places. And for those in the intellectual circle, I can say the aggressive, firm fight against corruption is definitely an opportunity for a turning point. Because to fight corruption is one of the key ramifications. And for the academic, or anybody in the University Polytechnic College of Education, if you talk of corruption, it's not just financial corruption. It is moral corruption. It is about integrity compromise. And all those things that reduce our worth in the face of others. And to me, Mr. President got it right. The corruption of the system, talking about whether it is harassment, as it were, cheating, plagiarism, call it. And I mean, I must say there are a number of others, even the issue of understanding what ought to be requirements for leadership in the universities, as it were, has become corrupted. So much so that somebody wants to insist on you must be so much tall, you must be dark or light or whatever, you must come from so angle of Nigeria, you must come from a particular state. Yeah. Believe me, I'm talking out of experience. Some of these things have sadly been constituted a disincentive. And once it constitutes a disincentive, it now stifles initiatives, creativity, and innovation.
But notable professors like you clearly are well versed with the rots in the system. Now that you occupy this position, how do you intend to help salvage the sector?
To me, I have a sense of fulfillment that I am speaking very strongly. And Nigerians appear to be responding positively on the issue of R&D, revolutionizing Nigeria, not just tertiary institutions. Because sometimes somebody thinks this R&D is about tertiary institutions. No. Until we put up law, we have a national R&D foundation, and we put up a law that makes it mandatory for every profit-making agency and others to have a research desk. A research desk, an R&D desk. And with that, what that means is that your best brains don't have to all be in the university system. So that the university professor that is sound and innovative enough doesn't have to go for sabbatical only in the university system. He can go for sabbatical in Julius Baja, in Dangote Company, for instance, because they have created R&D desk. So you have now jobs for intellectuals. So let people that are smart feel their country appreciates them until we get to that point. So we must see the R&D department created in TETFund as one platform. Yes, 1.5 years ago, I was essentially completely a teacher in the classroom. Today, God has given me the opportunity, and I thank federal government for giving me the platform to express my vision and dreams for this country. And that is why I have attempted to look at ways we can do so. Here in TETFund, I can tell you, I insisted that we should be able to improve the capacity of our staff through training on the job. These are aspects of the vision. They are all embedded in my 6-point vision. So if we cannot make a difference, for a long time I knew that R&D was never taken to the level it deserved. NUC was getting worried, and I shared my opinion with NUC, and I said, from TETFund, we will put money and create R&D units in each federal and state public university, polytechnic, and college of education. We are putting money, those R&D units would emerge. They will link up with the industry. The industry is bringing money. The professor or researcher, innovative researcher, has value, is giving product that is relevant, solving society's problem.
Very well, thank you. Professor Suleiman Bagoro, thank you for coming on Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you as always for your mails, and of course keep your views and comments coming using the address and Twitter handle on your screen. You can let us know anything happening within your locality, especially if you're in the nation's capital. Now, don't you forget, you can view the program on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos. Make your comments after viewing the current video as well as older episodes of the program. And always remember to include your name and where you're writing from. I'm Gloria Umezuki. Thanks for watching this week, and see you again.